For it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near or no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action, have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their masters to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes back and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and he will serve them. If he comes during the middle of the night when they're dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. But know this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
So now you know about my uncle, one of the many dark horses in my family, and I shall go no further. People always want to know what their lineage is, who their relatives were going back and back. I don't want to know, because I may not like what I see. But that is kind of how it is. And this uncle really kind of died broke, because everything he had through his state of mind that you've got to get to that racetrack, because he had a winner. And that is what I call a perpetual state of mind. And when that happens, strange things can happen, because it colors on what your decisions, how you make decisions, where you're going, how you put life together, whether you trust somebody or you don't trust somebody. And I think we see that currently in society, in the rash of deaths coming between police shootings and people who are seen as innocent. And I have no idea who is innocent and who is not. But I think everybody has colored what their decision might be before they know all the facts, which are clearly so important, based upon how we were brought up, based upon how we look at life, and based upon where we think we are going in life, who has power, who does not. And sometimes the result of that is tragedy. I had to do once the funeral of a 20-year-old man who took his own life. And he did it because he was gay. And he took his own life because he was so afraid of what his family would think if they ever knew. The tragedy is they did know. And at the funeral, the parents, with tears in their eyes, said to me, didn't he know that we would understand and love him? And all I could say to them is, somehow his state of mind at that moment didn't allow him to go there. And I don't know why, and I don't know what to say to you about this. But it was his state of mind. And the tragedy was that the communication was broken down because of that state of mind, which didn't allow him to freely talk to the people who at least he somehow knew loved him, but feared that that love would be taken away. So what is that state of life, that mind that we want to look at? First of all, that opening sentence, don't be afraid, little flock. For it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Do you really believe that? Come on, folks. It's his good pleasure. Not that he likes it, but it's his good pleasure. This feels good to God to give you the kingdom. And that's the starting point. I think one of the tragedies of life is that some people as Christians grow up and they look upon the whole relationship of faith as what you might call quid pro quo. Okay? Look, there are the 10 Commandments. When you keep them is how much God is going to love you. And when you fall flat on your face, you see there is this wrathful God just waiting. He's right around the corner watching every move you make. Be careful. And that's how it starts, but it never progresses beyond that. It never gets into sentences like, do not be afraid, little flock. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, what on earth does that mean? It invites you into what you might call a state of mind, and Jesus goes even further. Then he says, for where your treasure is, there your heart heart will be. Well, I knew where my uncle's treasure was. Went straight to the horse's mouth, every penny he ever made. And so the invitation is here, is to ask yourself, how do I think like on a daily basis? When I look at things in the news, what's my first reaction? And that's a good test. Kind of ask yourself, why do I think this way? And is it based on fact, or is it based on fiction? And if that is true, where is the treasure that I hold in my heart that wants to make a decision about this or that or any other thing? And it calls upon us to kind of have that type of knowledge that somehow something good has been given to us. As Jesus says to the crowd, it's God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, what is that kingdom all about? Well, I think that, the kingdom is where your heart is at all times, even before you get to it. It's kind of like that whole idea that you've got a vision out there in front of you. I'm watching the Olympics. Are you watching the Olympics? Well, of course, the whole world is watching the Olympics. And I'm wondering who's going to win. And I'm seeing these people who have worked so hard to get where they are. And some of these people are doing things that I could only dream about. But that's where their heart is, and that's where their treasure is, at least right now. And what they perform are things that I can't even imagine doing. But that's what their treasure is. So, how are you going to work with this, like in our church? Every church is called to do and look at these words and simply say, okay, what are we going to do about it here and now? And that's what, by the way, these terribly boring things called committees come into play. God never made a committee. Maybe we should think about that. Or a church council. But because we're human and because human politics come into play, you got to have some type of concept of putting things together where people can come and agree upon certain things about how you're going to do your treasure, where the heart of this church exists right now, where St. Luke is right now. And so all kinds of plans are out there and schedules are made. We look months in advance. We think about what we're going to do for Christmas in September. Why? Because we want you to have a treasure and know where your heart is in that treasure at any given time. So that you don't walk out of this church and say, gee, that was nice. Gee, the choir sounded good. Communion bread was a little dry. Well, you can live with that type of thing. But that's not what the treasure is. Now look, every person in the world has a concept of where they're going in life and how they want to live that. It's just a question of what drives that. And people who claim to be Christian have to have a concept to work with such as, do not be afraid, little flock, for the Father has good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And finally say, well, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. So kind of think about this. Now, I don't mean just here and now. Okay? You got to walk out of there and say, on, let's say Thursday morning, where's my treasure? What's God bringing to me today that lets me know I'm part of this little flock to which the kingdom has been given? And you go, there ain't nothing there today. You haven't been thinking hard enough. Are you partial to breathing? You might be very grateful on Thursday morning for just that. Know where your treasure is, that you got up, and that's the way it is. So, in the midst of all of this, comes a community that where its treasure is and where its heart is, it knows what to do at those moments in time when things are broken, when things are not there for someone. And tomorrow, and as Heinz sits here with his daughter and granddaughter, I meet with them. And we have to do and plan a funeral. And sometimes the treasures seem to break and fall apart. And that is where I meet with them tomorrow, not just as myself, but I represent this community, to say, we understand. We know what the pain is all about, because life has been changed irrevocably. But sure, as the sun rises on that day, you are in our prayers. We hold you up because this, we know that you are part of the treasure that we own in this church. You are ours and we are yours. And that is how it is in any community. It understands where it is going. It knows that it's been given something that is irrevocably beautiful. Do not fear, little flock, for the kingdom has been given yours. So you are now free, no longer to be selfish, but to give of your hearts to those who need it at any given moment. You are now the called people of God. And at the same time, as we call in remembrance, we also can rejoice. As I look at one of the newer members of our church, Will Glass, who will come forward and take bread in his hand for the first time and drink the consecrated wine, the body and blood of Christ. So we are a community that comes up and down in joy and in sorrow. And because we know that in this church and in this community is part of that treasure. It is part of where our heart is being called to. It is part of the remembrance of who we are when waters of baptism were poured over our head. And God called us forever by our name to be remembered in that thing called God's kingdom. May God bless us as we think about this on a daily basis, understanding our true identity, who we are,